Welcome to the 2025 Fantasy Football Playoffs. To make sure your squad gets to the finish line, wins that championship, we will be breaking down our rest of season fantasy football flex rankings for you all today. This is going to be fun, Ty, because to be fully transparent for the people, I am a last-minute relief here. They called me in from the bullpen. And they said, Lucas, we need the right-hander to come in for Cameron because due to last-minute circumstances, we're recording this after Monday Night Football, which is much later than we typically record. So this is fun because you and Cameron actually did your rankings today, and I am basically coming in and reacting to them and helping facilitate conversation, providing a bunch of the counter punches to your rankings. We have 60 different players, our top 60 flex players in fantasy football ranked out here for you. We'll start in the S tier, work our way down. No notes here on the S tier, Ty. It's Christian McCaffrey, Jahmyr Gibbs, Devon Achane, Jonathan Taylor, and Jackson Smith in Jigba. We could start a fight if you really wanted to and order Jahmyr Gibbs, Devon Achane, Jonathan Taylor. I'm really not going to do that because I think it's really a pick your flavor. You can make a case for any of those guys. Maybe the one player I do just want to touch on quickly is, in some ways, I think JSN feels like somewhat of the black sheep in this tier, not because he's like so far behind these two and we gave him like a pity toss into the S tier. He's been dominant, but would you say he's been as dominant as these four running backs have been? I mean, all four of these running backs have been averaging 20 plus fantasy points per game.
I understand where you're coming from. I think the reason why JSN makes it into this S tier is because if you need a receiver this year to come through for you in the biggest way possible, like we had Jamar Chase last year, it's JSN this year. In two of his last three games, we have 2 touchdowns, or 2 games with 2 touchdowns, I should say. That's hard to beat. It's really, really hard to beat. And when you know that everything goes through JSN in this offense because they can't run the ball, or at least they make it way more difficult than it really needs to be when it comes to running the ball. I'm fine keeping JSN in this S tier because, again, I think he is kind of the one-of-one receiver that emerges every year in fantasy. You know, we had CeeDee Lamb a couple of years ago. Jamar Chase was last year. JSN is kind of the one that has emerged this year.
Yeah, and let me go ahead and correct myself too, especially after this last week. JSN is averaging over 20 fantasy points per game. He is averaging 22.1 fantasy points per game in PPR formats. He is averaging more points per game than Devon Achane. So there's a conversation to be had there, but you have to imagine if Devon Achane would have finished that game against the Jets, we'd be looking at him as a 22 fantasy point per game player as well.
I'll say this real quick too. My rankings, and I believe Cam's rankings as well, came off of like half PPR kind of mindset as well. So like,
sure, yes. Yep.
Having 4 running backs in this S tier is because it's half PPR and it's kind of a touchdown argument there. JSN, though, again, like I said, knowing that he finds the end zone, whether because again,
a nice 28 points will help you out against the Atlanta Falcons. Yeah,
correct.
7 for 92 and 2 scores is going to do wonderful things for your numbers.
Correct. Yeah. And having 90 plus receiving yards in every game but one since the bye week. Yeah. It's tough to beat.
Yeah, 100%. We'll keep things moving along to the A tier here, but before we do, Ty, I always want to throw out there, I'm always surprised to look and see that 80% of you all who watch our content still aren't subscribe to the channel. We can quick make a change to that. It's 100% free. It's one of the easiest ways to support us. You can hit that subscribe button and turn on that notification bell as well, so you know when all of our newest episodes are up and when we go live on Sunday as well. Yes, we want to provide you our fantasy football insights to help you beat your friends, but along the way, we hope to build a fun little community, remind you of the fun and camaraderie that comes with fantasy football. It's how me, Cam, and Ty all like unified our friendship in college is over this game of fake football. And we know a lot of you have had that same experience. So we want to remind you of the fun and camaraderie that comes with the hyper competitiveness of fantasy football. I could just spit it out, but it's 11 p.m. Central Time. We got to keep things moving here tonight.
Make a wish
before we really lose it by the time we get to the E tier. The A tier is made up of Jamar Chase, Bijan Robinson, Puka Nacua, Josh Jacobs, Rashee Rice, Amon-Ra St. Brown, CeeDee Lamb, and James Cook. You're going to notice some of these tiers are getting bigger and bigger and bigger. It's going to be a mouthful. I want to make sure we service the audio listeners, so bear with us. I think the first player I do want to talk about in this tier, well, actually, no, there's not a specific guy I want to talk in this tier. I actually want to ask you the question of who do you think is in the most danger of falling out of this tier and moving down to the B tier? I think there's a handful of names you could consider. There's guys who had big highs this last week, but we saw Jamar Chase have a down week. Bijan Robinson didn't rack up any receiving yards, even with Drake London out against a Seattle Seahawks defense that's been bleeding receiving yards to running backs this year. You've got CeeDee Lamb was in concussion protocol. You've got James Cook isn't even like a black sheep. You got a great matchup against the Bengals. It feels like this is very a solidified tier, but is there any player you're worried about falling into the B tier, which the people will see is full of a bunch of talented players as well, that you could make an argument should belong in the A tier?
It pains me to say this one. And I didn't mention this to you before. We had a quick little run through and in discussion of who we were going to talk about. I didn't mention
quick
this
run
guy,
through the show.
It's Bijan Robinson.
I wondered if you were going to go this route. It's not great vibes without Michael Penix, and I can't believe I'm saying that. I can't believe I'm saying that.
What a world that we live in. Yes, I understand that Bijan Robinson has a ceiling that is very comparable to the Jonathan Taylors, the Jahmyr Gibbs, and the Christian McCaffreys. But what he has that the other guys don't necessarily have, maybe JT to a certain extent now with Daniel Jones out for the year, is just a floor that can absolutely cost you at this point in the year when we get into fantasy playoffs. We had a game against Miami in week 8, 4.3 half PPR points. We had a game week 10 against Indy. You only had 9.8 half PPR points, 8.4 against Seattle this past week. And probably the most concerning thing is that those two most recent games, right, against Indy and Seattle, we had 17 carries and we had 20 carries. So it's not a matter of like, he's not getting volume like we had in Miami back in week 8, where he only had 9 carries. It's just that the carries don't really go anywhere. So it's kind of this, it's a similar conversation to the one that we've had about Ashton Genty of just like, he's going to get the volume because they have nothing else that they can do. Like they have to give him the ball. It's just going to be impossible to predict where exactly those carries are going to go just because of the state of the offense.
Let me start by saying this. I think everybody who is in this tier is very safely in this tier rest of the season. I asked the question just because we had such an ebb and flow of high performances and low performances out of this tier, yet fully knowing any of these guys on a given week could remind us why they're actually S tier players. I don't hate the case for Bijan Robinson because if this offense can't get in a scoring position, if you're not going to get the touchdown from Bijan, the guy's going to rumble for 70 plus rushing yards in most matchups, but he's got to get the receiving work and he's got to find the end zone too. And if those two things aren't clicking, you're looking at like the RB 12 to 15 instead of the RB 2 to 5 on a given week. So I don't hate the case there for Bijan Robinson. I don't necessarily have like a strong sense here. I think maybe in future weeks, depending on, I haven't checked anything on CeeDee Lamb. I've literally been working since I got up this morning. It's been a hectic day. The people don't need to listen to me rant about my day, but I will say that the one player I would maybe lean to is CeeDee Lamb, and it's mostly just because I want to get clear updates on his injury status rest of season. Because I mean, he went full like fencing position on Thursday Night Football. He's probably, if I had to guess, going to be out at least a week. And to that severity, I am a little bit concerned for longer as well. Let's move into the B tier where we can have more specific conversations. Again, we are trying to fly through 60 players here. So if we don't talk about a player that you have thoughts on, please put it in the comments below. One of the episodes last week, we talked about Tet McMillan, or we didn't talk about Tet McMillan. We heard from you all about your Tet McMillan thoughts, right? So, but that's the purpose, right? We want to hear your thoughts. We want to hear your arguments against what we're putting out there or what we're not putting out there about a specific player. So let us know down in the comments below. The B tier tie is our largest tier, 14 players in this tier. It's Bucky Irving. Bear with me, y'all. Nico Collins, Devontae Adams, George Pickens, Chase Brown, Derrick Henry, A.J. Brown, Jalen Waddle, Trey McBride, Lad McConkey, T. Higgins, Javonte Williams, Travis Etienne, and Kyron Williams. Let's start with Bucky at the top. I'm surprised you and Cam have such an aggressive ranking on Bucky. To me, it's not that I don't think Bucky doesn't belong in this tier. I just don't think Bucky should be at the top of this tier. I think that should be Nico Collins, because if the chips continue falling right in Houston, I think we're potentially looking at Nico Collins in the A tier rest of season more than we are the B tier. 4 for 104
Fair.
this last week. I understand it wasn't pure volume, but 4 for 104 against Kansas City has to mean something.
Yes, it does.
Not to turn this into a Nico conversation. I'm giving my 2 cents. And I would even say like George Pickens maybe should be the top of this tier. Who am I kidding? That's actually probably the correct answer.
I was gonna say I think I would give more. I would approve that more than Nico being at the top, just because still can't get a.
I retract that Nico comment. I would put George Pickens at the top of this tier.
We've come full circle.
And I would
here,
potentially put him in the A tier. He's the one who I think could jump to the A tier if CD Lamb missed this time. I mean, he was top 2 without CD Lamb earlier this year.
There's an argument for it.
Back to Bucky. Let's go back to Bucky. This isn't a George Pickens conversation. This is a Bucky conversation. Give me the pro Bucky case here, because this week he was splitting time with Rachaad White, and in what seems to be like what should have been a smash matchup against a New Orleans defense that's been run on at the second highest rate this year. This felt like a game where Bucky should have gotten 20 carries and given you at least 4 yards carry, 80 yards and a score. That's what it felt like this game shouldn't have been, yet they let him split with Rachaad White. So give me your breakdown here and why you're still bullish on Bucky.
So we're getting Tristan Wirfs back on the offensive line to give you some kind of stability, because you've had offensive line injuries and changes all year long. So that's one point. The next point is that even despite the injury, he is still playing right around like 50% of snaps, right? So it's not like he's losing snaps or anything like that. I have to say the downside is just that what if this team knows that Bucky is playing at 80-90% for the rest of the year? And this was the first game of it where, yeah, we're going to have to keep Rachaad White a little more involved than we would like, because again, Bucky isn't capable of kind of handling the full workload that he was before he got hurt. This feels off the more that I think about it. But I have to say, if it was just a kind of fluky situation last game, because he did leave the game for a little bit because of an ankle issue that he had, and he came back in. If that was the issue as to why he didn't play as much, and he's kind of full go, it's a short week, which is kind of a tall ask.
Right.
I think I'm willing to take the chance that last week, week 14 against the Saints, is not the norm going forward, that I think Bucky does kind of regain or retake that kind of lead role. And we're going to see Rachaad White kind of play closer to like 35% of snaps like he did in week 13 when Bucky came back. But I have to acknowledge, you have to acknowledge that the possibility of week 14 being the consistent, playing time that we're getting for the rest of the year, like I said, it's a possibility. You can't sit there after this week and go, yeah, that's for sure not happening again the rest of the year.
I think I'm just concerned. It's a new foot sprain here in week 14. It just concerns me enough where like do I put him lower towards like the Javonte Williams and Kyron Williams? I think that's where I lean. We're going to have a Chase Brown conversation here in a moment, but it's tough for me to see Bucky at the top of this tier when I know George Pickens without CeeDee Lamb is an A-tier player. And even with CeeDee Lamb, he's debatably an A-tier player, averaging more points per game than CeeDee Lamb, ranking as a top 5 receiver in points per game in half PPR formats. So to have George Pickens behind Nico and Devontae, I get it's a rest of season rankings, but when I also look at what George Pickens has done and projecting him rest of season, he's the one where I'm like, he should easily be at the top of this tier and knocking on the door of that A tier. So I'm with you on everything with Bucky. It's concerning. Everything about it is just like icky vibes outside of getting Tristan Wirfs back, which I think would be huge for this offensive line. But we'll keep pressing on here because we could have a lot of Tampa Bay Buccaneers conversations based on what this offense has been putting on field. But I know it was raining on Sunday as well. That plays into it, but I digress. Let's keep things moving. I said we were going to have a Chase Brown conversation, Ty. What do you do with this last week? I mean, the dude literally had a long carry of 5 yards. His 5-yard rushing touchdown was his longest carry of the day. We're talking about a guy who couldn't even muster 40 total yards against the Buffalo Bills, who have literally been atrocious against running backs this year, despite in 5 games prior getting 100 plus total yards in those games, including 76 plus rushing yards in those games, in 3 of those games, excuse me. What are you doing with Chase Brown here? What's the rest of season projection, given what we just saw this last week?
I think what I would have to do with Chase Brown moving forward is just acknowledge that, like, this is kind of a floor for Chase Brown that could, rear its ugly head at an unfortunate week. Like, you look at a Miami matchup in week 16 and you're like, you know what, Chase Brown could have success in that one. Miami has been playing better, and before you know it, you're staring down at 7 points from Chase Brown.
If he's not finding the end zone.
Right. That's kind of the crux
bailed you
of
out this week.
Right. The touchdowns bailed you out, right? 2 touchdowns that gave you a running back 7 finish in half PPR. Over the last 4 weeks since coming out of their bye week, Chase Brown is actually a top 5 running back in usage. So volume is there, and the offensive line has been playing better, but for whatever reason, it just kind of fell flat on its face this week. So that's why I go back to, like, yeah, the floor is still there. The floor is still kind of dangerously low for Chase Brown, that at any given moment, it might end up costing you. But you got to trust the volume to a certain extent of just like, hey, Chase Brown is a key piece in this offense. He's kind of a red zone. Like, T. Higgins isn't necessarily like the biggest like red zone threat, right? Like, it's kind of Jamar Chase territory, but then it's kind of Chase Brown territory, right? Like, this offense can get the ball down the field into the red zone. So you get some rushing opportunities there. Maybe you get Chase Brown in the receiving game. So yes, long answer, short answer for a very long explanation. The floor is as low. It's still as low as it was at the beginning of the year. But now we have a ceiling, which makes him a little more intriguing.
Baltimore, Miami, Arizona, rest of the way. You do like that schedule. If Jaylen Warren could take advantage in the screen game against the Ravens last week, you would like to think that Chase Brown could take advantage this next week. I know one of them was a 38-yard touchdown, but that's what I'm saying, right? Like, Pittsburgh can let up the big plays to the running back position as well, despite what the metrics initially tell you. Miami, you mentioned a great matchup, and Arizona's just missing Walter Nolan, man. I right when they get him back, they lose him again, and that's just a huge blow to the middle of that defense. So, yeah, you like the 3 matchups coming up. Chase Brown, I think. Yeah, he's like, I don't know if I push him top 10 for sure, but he's like definitely knocking on the door of top 12, if not running back 12 specifically. Derrick Henry, I'll call it a bounce back week-ish. 25 for 94, average only 3.8 yards per carry against the Steelers. No scores, he did catch a pass. I expressed my concern somewhat to Cameron last week of the Ravens' tendencies to get Derrick Henry involved early and often, and in for selected games just cool the crap off of him after he starts on a roll. The 10 for 60 in a score game against the Bengals, where he opened the first quarter red hot, and they just didn't give him the football again the rest of the game. It was a little bit of a concern for me. It was enough for me to raise a red flag. The volume's there, 25 carries. You'll take 94 yards. You'll take your 9.4 fantasy points. Kind of the same question for Chase Brown. What's a rest of season projection here for Derrick Henry? Cincinnati, New England, Green Bay, the rest of the way. Derrick Henry is still a top 10 running back for you, yes?
Yes, because it feels like on any given week, we can. We're not going to get the Baltimore offense of last year, But like you said, this team still has an identity in the run game. They are still going to give Derrick Henry the ball. The week 13, I think this past week, was kind of the correction to what happened
Yeah.
against
What happened the week
Cincinnati.
prior? Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So I think yes, it's still a low floor. It's a better floor than what Chase Brown's floor is. But we ultimately need touchdowns because we're not getting receiving work. So it's very similar position as well, because we said the same thing for Chase Brown. We need touchdowns. But when you have Lamar Jackson, even at the 80% that he's playing at right now, you still have a chance of finding the end zone most weeks. So yes, Cincinnati again this week, New England, Green Bay, like you had said, it's not the most friendly of schedules, but I still feel like Baltimore has to get him the ball, because if you're not going to get him the ball,
He has to
kind
be
of
part of this winning formula. He
right,
has to.
exactly.
He has to. If you're going to make the playoffs, you have to get Derrick Henry involved. You have to make sure this engine is chugging for your offense. Point blank simple. 100%. I want to move down to Trey McBride. I realized Derrick Henry wasn't on our list of people to talk about, but then we start talking about Chase Brown, and I'm like, it's the same question I have for Derrick Henry, though, really. Trey McBride, I think people will initially look at this and be like, dude, Trey McBride is totally an A-tier player. Again, we're doing this based off of half PPR formats. Trey McBride is averaging 14 and a half PPR points this year. For context, that is only 0.4 more points than Devontae Adams. So I do think Trey McBride kind of fits in this tier. Should he be higher in this tier? Should he be closer to that Nico Collins, George Pickens, Devontae Adams range? Potentially. But look, man, if Jacoby Brissett is just going to keep slinging the ball 44 times per game, I know Trey McBride didn't get home. I know it was the Michael Wilson show again this week, who we'll talk about in a little bit. Like, you don't have any reason to fear on Trey McBride. For me, I think, again, he's one of the guys that you debate if he's actually at the top of this tier for me.
Yeah. The reason why he's not for me is just the two upcoming games. Yeah, Houston, and then you got Atlanta. There's not going to be a whole lot of opportunity like we have seen in the past with Trey McBride, right? Where we have double-digit
juicy
targets.
Schedule they've been getting here. Oh man, I didn't realize how much green is on that schedule.
So I
don't want to overthink it to that extent, but I just opened the schedule and I'm like, holy crap, that's a lot of green. Those are a lot of plus matchups.
Like when I look at it, look at all pass catchers, wide receivers, and tight ends, Trey McBride is a top 10 pass catcher in usage, right? So you don't want to dock him too much for the tough matchups, because if somebody's going to get the ball in this Arizona offense, it's going to be Trey McBride. And especially with if Marvin Harrison comes back, then it takes away any kind of receiver threats of taking work away from Trey McBride. But again, that's where I go back to this. You got Houston and Atlanta. It's gonna be tough sledding for him, and he can give you, another week like he did this past week with 8 points, which isn't the end of the world, but it's not the 15 plus fantasy points that you could get any other week from him with a better matchup.
Yeah, I don't want to play the matchup game too much. Again, we're looking rest of season, right? So I think there has to be some sort of all right, you have his two toughest matchups of the season coming up here. That should probably count for something. I completely understand that logic. But again, it's like finding that balance of how much does what we've already seen this season weigh into that. So if people want to say well, after AJ Brown getting another 10 catches for how many yards did he end up going for tonight? I don't have the number off the top of my head, but AJ Brown having another alpha performance in Philadelphia, basically just didn't find pay dirt. You put him, maybe this is the right range. I don't know. You let us know down in the comments, but wanted to at least have the dialogue on Trey McBride there. The last player I want to cover in this tier, Ty, is Ladd McConkey. We talk about a black sheep or a guy who we could see falling out of the A tier. For me, I'll be perfectly honest with you. Ladd McConkey doesn't belong in this tier. When I saw that from you and Cameron, that was one of the biggest disagreements I had, is that Ladd McConkey is in this tier, because I would much rather take T. Higgins straight up. I would much rather play the 3 running backs after him straight up. And even just looking at a few guys coming up in the next tier, I like find it hard to convince myself that I absolutely would rather play Lad McConkey over a handful of those guys. I mean, the volume just hasn't been there and the production hasn't been there. Where I'm like, people are concerned about Emeka Egbuka, and yet we're like ranking Lad McConkey ahead of him as if Lad McConkey has been light years better.
Sure.
I shouldn't say light years better. That's a little bit too aggressive of a comment. I guess I'm saying I'm looking at what Lad McConkey has been putting out the last 3 weeks. It's
5
not
weeks.
it's 5. Yeah, okay. We'll go ahead. We can extrapolate to 5 weeks. I just like it's the same time span as Emeka Egbuka, and people are ready to punish Emeka Egbuka, and people are like, well, Lad McConkey with Justin Herbert, the dude had. It's been a tailspin for both of these guys, and I don't quite understand why we're docking Emeka Egbuka, but keeping the optimism alive on Lad McConkey.
That's a question for Cam. Some of us are still optimistic on Emeka Egbuka the rest of the year. I'm not gonna lie, like it hasn't looked the prettiest for Lad McConkey these last 5 weeks. We haven't had more than 6 targets in a game. We have one game with over 100 yards, and the next highest total that we've had is 56 yards. It hasn't been great. Reason why I've still got optimism for Lad McConkey is it feels like we could get back to these like 9-10 target games at any moment with this offense, because they do need to throw the ball. I haven't seen the Joe All timeline recovery, but you made the stat.
He's out for the year, is he not?
Is he out for the year?
I am.
Oh,
Okay,
I feel way unprepared at this moment if he's out for the rest of the year. But
season-ending high ankle sprain during week 9. Yeah, I was going to say, I'm like, I swear that was season-ending. I thought that wasn't up for debate.
Well, that certainly changes things. Yeah, probably a little too high at this point. I knew it was going to be a rough game for Lad McConkey against Philly. Cooper DeJean has absolutely shut down any kind of slot wide receiver he's matched up with against this year. So I think there may be a bit of recency bias that people may see this and go, well, look, he just had 1 for 12 against Philly, and he's still this high. This was coming, okay? Because Philly is a really, really good defense, okay? But going to Kansas City, get Dallas, then you get Houston and Denver to wrap things up in week 18. If you still play fantasy in week 18, talk to your league manager if you do, because you need to get that changed. You're going to have to throw the ball. And like I said, I feel like these are kind of matchups where we can get back to these 8, 9, 10 target games. If we do, Lad McConkey certainly fits the billing for like a top 15 receiver rest of the way.
Yeah, I think you're willing to hold on to optimism, where I just at this point I just don't think Lad McConkey belongs in this tier. Like Lad McConkey and George Pickens in the same tier, just it feels redonkulous to me. And maybe this is where we should have clipped the tier. But yet I look at guys like Kyron and Travis Etienne. I know we could talk about Blake Corum if we wanted to. That's been a drive-by-drive rotation for the last 4 weeks if you've been paying attention. I mentioned in my stash videos over on Fantasy Pros with Blake Corum. Smart people, Josh and Hayden's over at Underdog, they've been talking about it on their show for the last 4 weeks. It's been there, but this Rams offense is just so freaking good that I don't really care, because it could be Kyron's turn to hit pay dirt twice next week. And he probably will. There's just not room for that level of optimism in my mind. Like, to me, there's a lot more pessimism, if anything, especially depending on how Herbert's hand heals up too. I want to go back and rewatch tonight's game. I want to see how much Herbert was working under center versus shotgun. Because if he wasn't taking as much under center because of that hand, I want to see how that hand progresses, if they can actually get back to taking more under center play action, or if he's going to be stuck in shotgun and allowing defenses to predict that offense a little bit more frequently. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at Underdog, where you can get into the game this season playing Pick'em. It's extremely simple. Just pick higher or lower on 2 or more of your favorite players. For example, I'll pick the highers on Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, and Xavier Worthy. If I played $10 and got all 3 of them right, I would win $60 just by watching football. And that's the beauty of Pick'em. You can track your picks and your wins while you enjoy the game. Now, if you're not on Underdog yet, scan the QR code on your screen or use our code FELLAS when you sign up, because new customers will get $50 in bonus funds when you play your first $5 on the app. Plus, Underdog will give you a free pick to use in your first entry. Again, that's code FELLAS over on Underdog. Now let's get you back to the rest of the show. Let's keep it on moving, Ty. We've still got a whole lot of players to discuss here. Probably not enough time to do it, but we're going to do our frickin' best. C tier, Chris Olave, Saquon Barkley, despite having a very solid outing on Monday Night Football. Tedero McMillan, Justin Jefferson, Devonta Smith, Travion Henderson, Breece Hall, Drake London, DeAndre Swift, Christian Watson, RJ Harvey, Ashton Genty, Jameson Williams. I have got a ton of thoughts on this tier. I'll maybe start with I don't even want to say the least controversial name. I brought up Tet McMillan as an example. Here we are putting Tet McMillan in the same range of receivers again. I saw your comment last video. Guy struggling to barely put up 11 fantasy points this year. You're not wrong. When we're forecasting rest of season, though, is there a chance Tet does get a slight bump out of the bye here, Ty?
Just take a look at the current situation for Carolina right now, right? They're tied for the division lead. They can make the playoffs as a 4 seed at this moment because of how bad Tampa Bay is playing.
Which is crazy.
It's crazy. You need to win games. That's how I look at this. You need to win games, and you win games by getting the ball to your best playmakers. And I'm sorry, we're going to talk about Rico Dowdle in just a little bit. The Rico Dowdle that we saw at earlier this year that was giving us 200 rushing yard games, he's not here anymore.
That's going to be a drive-by. That's going to be a hot hand drive-by drive too soon.
I just take a look at Carolina's situation. They're tied for the division lead with Tampa Bay. You need to win games if you want to make the postseason. And that kind of opportunity leads me to believe you got to get the ball into your best playmakers' hands. And you may think, oh yeah, well, that's Rico Dowdle. I've got news for you. The Rico Dowdle that we saw earlier this year that was giving you 200 rushing yards a game ain't here anymore. Okay.
No.
So if we don't have as reliable of a run game as we used to, what do you have to do? You have to air it out. Yes, Xavier Leggetti Spaghetti can maybe pop up on the box score every once in a while. It's going to be Tet, man. It's going to be Tet. You get New Orleans, you get Tampa, then you get Seattle. Must win games. 2 division games, must win games. You got to get the ball into your playmakers' hands. That's Tedero and McMillan. They've been moving them around the line of scrimmage as well recently, over the last couple of weeks, I should say, not just like week 13. It's happening a while. So,
yep.
Yes, I understand, last 4 games, actually technically 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 of his last 7 games, not over 11.5 PPR points. I'm expecting a bump in volume and efficiency coming out of the bye, knowing this team situation.
And it's not going to be 1 for 43 and 1 from here on out, right? Because when you're looking at 11 points, that's what you're getting. You're looking at 1 for 43 and a touchdown. It's going to be Tet who's going to be getting 4 for 73 and 4 for 74, shorted Jalen Coker by a yard last week and 1. That should be the Tet stat line, not the Jalen Coker stat line. So, look, if this Panthers offense can come out and throw the ball like they did against the Los Angeles Rams in their upset back in week 13, I think we're in business with Tet. Chips just didn't totally fall 100% in his favor in that game, but I still got optimism for Tet rest of season based on what he's put on film. He's a guy that end of season shouldn't just be an 11 point per game player. He should be like a 14 point per game player. 13 if you want to go half PPR format. So yeah, you're right. If they're fighting for a playoff spot, this offense has got to start getting aggressive and trying to put points on the board because they're going to need to win out here to win the division. And yeah, I think that has to come through Tetero and McMillan, which is why. Okay, and we'll even talk about let's talk about this next range of wide receivers, Ty, because I think you put him ahead of Justin Jefferson still, which this is a baffling ranking to me. I haven't looked specifically where you and or Cam have him. This is baffling to me. I strongly disagree with where Jefferson is at. I would put Devonta Smith ahead of both ahead of Justin Jefferson. You could probably debate me on Tet McMillan if you really wanted. Christian Watson in this tier. Jameson Williams at the bottom. Like Jameson Williams to me is the guy who I think should be at the top of this tier. Yet he's at the bottom of this tier. Give me your line of thinking here. Let's start with Justin Jefferson and kind of work our way down because JJ's still in a routing in JJ McCarthy's most efficient day as a Minnesota, not necessarily his best, his most efficient day as a Minnesota Viking. 2 for 11. That's all we get. I don't know how in the world we're still doing this with Justin Jefferson. He's benchable. People have been benching him in fantasy football. We can't keep ranking him as a top 20 option. So I don't understand the thought process here. You're going to need to explain it to me like I'm 5 because based on what I'm seeing in a game against the Washington Commanders where the Vikings absolutely routed them, it was the tight ends who had a party. I don't know how we're ranking Justin Jefferson ahead of the likes of Devonta Smith, we'll get to Drake London in a moment, ahead of Jameson Williams, who again, I just flat out think should be at the top of this tier. Give me your logic here behind this.
Well, we have to. One of these recent games was with Max Brosmer against Seattle. We knew that was going to be a bad game. Okay, that's an important piece of context to this whole argument. Okay, but now we look ahead: Dallas, the Giants, the Lions.
I love the schedule.
It's gonna be the schedule, right? 6 targets against Green Bay. It was a routing. 6 targets against Seattle and what was a routing. 4 targets against Washington. Here's just how I see this. Jefferson is still running kind of these intermediate. He's not really a deep route guy, but he's more downfield and everything. So at least in this Washington game with Minnesota and JJ McCarthy was really quick. It was really short routes. Just get the ball out of your hand, right? I don't think you can do that against Dallas and the Giants and the Lions and expect the same result. You're going to have to push the ball downfield. Yes, that is where McCarthy has
9 to do that. That's the question. Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt your argument and come across rude, but you can't just throw that out there and not recognize JJ McCarthy as the biggest piece of the puzzle here.
It is. It 1000% is. But can we really go into these games without trying to? I shouldn't even say we're going to scheme up Jefferson touches or anything like that. You have to start throwing the ball to 18 in these games. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. You have to start throwing him the ball if you have any chance of staying in these games. Or even
the Vikings
winning
want to? They want to win?
You want to develop McCarthy.
Touche. That's the count.
So I really think if we're looking at yes, we have Jefferson positioned ahead of Jameson and Watson. That's kind of how the consensus kind of shook out. But I completely understand the argument to having Devonta Smith and having Jameson Williams, Christian Watson ahead of Jefferson because of recent performances that they have had. I totally get it. That's kind of the tier ranking. You can have these guys in any kind of order. I don't have many gripes with it. I just see the path forward here for Minnesota with this match, with the schedule. 18 is going to get the ball in these games. If he doesn't, then come back next week and roast me in the comments. But like Jefferson has to start
you're
getting the
gonna get
ball.
roasted before the games.
I roast me before the games, but
Before and after. Ty's asking for it.
I will put more stock in the after because then another game will pass. But it's Dallas. That's all.
I can't rank him this high until I see it. I can't do it until I see it. And let me also say this, dude. Let me preface the Christian Watson point with he's still a part-time player, okay? But he's doing incredible things as a part-time player right now. Jordan Love is hitting him on the deep ball. You're getting those 35 plus yard touchdowns, which are just gold mines here for Christian Watson. So the reason why I even just say Christian Watson is mostly just hey, he's doing a heck of a lot as a part-time player right now. Could he be doing even more once he starts to see more snaps? It's the only reason why I bring up his name. Jameson Williams is the one where I'm just like, I get it. It was a shootout palooza with Dallas on Thursday night this last week. Will that be every week? No. Now that Amon-Ra St. Brown is fully healthy. But again, since Dan Campbell took over play calling, things have been substantially better for Jameson Williams. So he's one where I just look at that and I'm like, that doesn't make any sense to me to have Jameson Williams after Justin Jefferson, when to me, Jameson Williams is a guy, if he puts up another 15 plus point week, like I'm going to be vouching ahead of like Lad McConkey. He's ahead of Lad McConkey for me right now with how well Jameson Williams has been playing.
You know what those receivers won't give you that Jameson Williams can give you? A big old goose egg.
Oh, wow. Okay, Justin Jefferson 2 for 11 doesn't feel any better than a goose egg with your fantasy playoffs on the line.
I would rather take 1.8
32. Hey, I get it. 5.2 points. I get it. Doesn't feel a whole lot better than the 1.2 Jameson Williams. I get it. I get there's more volatility there. At some point, though, you got to play the game of fantasy football to win the freaking game. And Justin Jefferson just isn't doing that for anybody right now. Justin Jefferson didn't get anybody to the fantasy playoffs. Jameson Williams might have in the last 5 weeks.
So that's maybe then the other point for back to this Jefferson conversation. Like, how much stock are we actually going to put in having like how big of a deal is it really if Jefferson is in the C tier when the chances are,
hey, if I said I was going to come in and basically just roast you in Cam's
well, that's all the power to you. You can absolutely do that. I'm just saying, hey, the teams that have Jefferson probably not in the playoffs. So for your team, if you're looking at this and you're like, well, I don't have Jefferson, you can count your lucky stars that you don't have the Jefferson problem, or that you have to like try to process and predict what things will look like moving forward.
All right, we talked a lot about the wide receivers. Let's take a step back. Let's talk about the running backs. Saquon Barkley coming off of a fine game. He's just tough to really put any higher than the C tier at this point. It was a good game, but
a broken clock is right twice.
Yeah, right. Yeah, broken clock is right twice a day. Chargers have been pretty beat up in the middle of their. Oh no, that's been the Eagles who have been beat up in the middle of their defense. I retract that statement. But point being, Saquon Barkley had a nice little bounce back game here. It's about as high as I'm still willing to put him, though. You got Travion Henderson here. I want to run it back one more week and really see if these splits with Ramondre are legit. If they're really going to bring back Ramondre and have him. Yeah, I need one more week before I'm ready to like get off my Travion high horse. Breece Hall is a fascinating one though, because you have the New York Jets. You have plenty of opportunity for Breece as the guy there. What are we kind of doing here? Because the schedule rest of season, oh my gosh, I'm not a big fan. You got Jacksonville this upcoming week. You got New Orleans the week after. Again, they've been run on a lot, but we just saw Bucky didn't have a ferocious day against them. And you got New England in week 17.
Not great, Bob. Not great. I think Breece is just empty volume. It's him and Ashton Genty. I see like two peas in a pod. Like horrible offenses. They have to get the ball because they're the best player on their team. They're just not going to go anywhere. The one bit of hope that you have is against the Saints. But by that point, maybe a little too late at that point. Jacksonville has been really, really good against the run this year. Then you get New England week 17. They've also been really, really good against the run. The Brees outlook is really simple to me. Yes, it's volume. The volume doesn't go anywhere. If you made the playoffs with Brees, I don't know how you did. You should be counting your lucky stars. I hope you've got some other option other than Brees, but you probably don't to play over him at this point.
Yeah, I agree. It's empty calories with Brees Hall. The one that I'm also going to go to bat for here. You got RJ Harvey, who's put up 19 points in each of his last 2 games. He's a guy where I would put ahead of Brees Hall. I'd probably put him ahead of, like, it might seem ballsy, I'd put him ahead of Saquon Barkley at this point. I mean, Sean Payton has just been loving what RJ Harvey's been putting out there for him. You've seen how good he is in a phone booth. You've seen the lateral agility with RJ Harvey as well. That was on full display this last week against the Raiders. Obviously, a team you can totally run on, but I don't know, man. The way he's being the workhorse for the Denver Broncos right now, like, he's a guy I'd probably put ahead of Brees. He's a guy I'd probably put ahead of Saquon. Like, if we're being honest, he probably belongs closer to the Javantes, the ETNs, and the Kyren Williams of the world than he does Brees Hall and DeAndre Swift.
Sure, I think Green Bay, Jacksonville, Kansas City would have something else to say about that.
Yeah.
And
you're at least hopeful he can catch 6 for 25 again, though. You know what I mean? Like, they'll at least get him involved in the receiving game and give you a nice little floor there.
That's the thing. We need the receiving work to stick.
Yeah.
Because I'm not expecting the touchdowns to stick, but if the receiving work sticks, then it kind of, I shouldn't say it balances out, but that gives you a little more optimism moving forward. It's Sean Payton, man. Can't ever get a read on the guy in this Denver offense. So I'm just like, I guess we're going to take this week by week.
Yeah. And again, based on what I'm seeing, if it's going to continue to be 23 touches for RJ Harvey, that's just a guy where I'm like, 23 touches, great. That not many other running backs are getting that right now. So something to consider. Keep an eye on that, obviously, with the tough matchups coming up as well, though. Again, we are doing like a super high point overview of all these players. So again, we're skipping over a lot of guys that you probably have thoughts on. Would love to hear your thoughts down in the comments below, either about players that we've talked about. If there's like points of like, Lucas, quit cutting off Ty to tell him he's dumb about Justin Jefferson and that JJ McCarthy isn't like, we all know JJ McCarthy's the problem. Let them, I get it. Hey, let us know in the comments down below. We want to hear all of your thoughts. Frankly, we enjoy hearing them, whether they're like positive or negative. It helps, gives us even more perspective of how you all are viewing these situations as well. What are you giggling at over there?
Well,
okay, don't tell me I'm like a
no
fat sack of crap or something down in the comments.
No. There are kind words, but we know we read the comments. We know what the majority of these comments are. We know what they are.
But it also helps us frame these things each episode too. Like, where didn't we go in depth on a player, so we can like provide more context as to why we're optimistic or pessimistic around.
And no, I don't want to talk about Brian Thomas Jr. every single week. So,
oh gosh, no, we can't talk about Brian Thomas Jr. every single week. He's the okay. So a side tangent, because we're this far into the episode. In my high school band, there was one song that was forbidden from ever being played, and it was "Careless Whisper," because everybody wanted to learn how to play. Yes. Everybody wanted to know how to play that, especially the saxophone players. And our band teacher got so fed up, he literally banned the song. Brian Thomas Jr. is "Careless Whisper" on the show. Can we get a "Careless Whisper" drop for Brian Thomas Jr. now?
Keep it to less than 5 seconds so we don't get the
no copyright.
No copyright. Nuh-uh.
Brian Thomas Jr. is "Careless Whisper" on this show. Okay, D tier tie. We'll have to skip a few of these players here. Emeka Egbuka, Terry McLaurin, Wan'Dale Robinson, Amari Hampton. Hey, shout out, back playing, scored a touchdown on Monday Night Football. Rico Dowdle, Brock Bowers, Cortland Sutton, Quinshon Judkins, George Kittle. We had a few players highlighted. I know we mentioned potentially talking about Rico. In summation, it's Chuba Hubbard is the issue here.
Yes.
Is it split with Chuba Hubbard? Is it a rotating drive like it would be with Kyren Williams and Blake Corin? Is it purely hot hand? That's the Rico Dowdle in 15 seconds for you. I want to start in Emeka Egbuka. What the heck are you doing? This Buccaneers passing attack is still just in a tailspin. I understand there was weather impacting the game. It would kind of move from heavy rain to start into a lighter rain. Things would let up a little bit, but then go right back to a heavy rain. Like the conditions were affecting things this last week, but this wasn't like a one-time thing, Ty. It's been the last month and a half here for Emeka Egbuka.
I mean, he had probably one of the most brutal drops I have seen all year.
I yelled when I was like, oh my gosh, finally, maybe we get the touch. Nope. Just brought down the hands too soon. He stabs that thing, it's a touchdown.
Yeah.
You could tell he kind of tried to corral that, like go up and get it, but then like corral. No, he just had to stab that thing.
Just had to stab it, man. And blame it on the rain. Milli Vanilli reference to continue on the 70s and 80s music references.
As 90s kids.
Yeah, as late 90s kids, not even early, late 90s. The reason why I'm still optimistic on Emeka Egbuka, you have Mike Evans coming back into the lineup. Yes, we've had Chris Godwin back for the past 2 weeks. It's just not as much attention needed on Emeka Egbuka, right? And it's not like, I shouldn't say that like teams have been shutting down Emeka Egbuka or anything, because he's still top 5 in targets since week 7. Like he's had 8 or more targets in every single game since week 7. I wonder if, kind of playing out of position, because for a while there he was kind of playing the X role for them. That's not Emeka Egbuka's like preferred spot on the field. He's definitely more like flanker, opposite of the X. So now that you got Mike Evans kind of back in the lineup, you get in a more natural position. Maybe volume 6, probably not, just because Mike Evans demands his own targets there. But I feel like there are some better days ahead here for Emeka Egbuka, and very similar to what we were saying for Tet about the state of the team. Tampa Bay, you need to win games as well. Okay, you got Atlanta, Carolina, Miami. That's a really nice matchup for your receivers. So I'm still optimistic. We're gonna start really in ball. Like we're gonna start catching footballs. I'm gonna start manifesting it, because that's the last thing I can do at this point.
I'm sorry. If you're watching on YouTube, I've been giggling off to the side here.
Yeah, I know, and I've just had to blaze through it.
Nothing to do with Emeka Egbuka. I literally opened my Facebook feed for 1 second to go clear my notifications. I had something come through. I just wanted to clear it, get it out of the way. The first thing I see at the top of my timeline, it's an post from ESPN. Jim Harbaugh really putting the Los Angeles Chargers Monday Night Football win in perspective. Quote from Jim Harbaugh: "I'd put it in the discussion of the birth of my 7 children and my marriage."
What a legend. What a legend. Jim Harbaugh, never die. Never die.
Top three important thing. And if I were a Christian, it'd be number 4. I am a follower of Jesus. That's number 1. I won't speak for Jim Harbaugh and his religious beliefs, but
gosh, Jim Harbaugh, what a national treasure.
Oh man. Okay, sorry, Emeka Egbuka. You have optimism. I just lean more pessimistic. Look, Baker Mayfield just hasn't been playing as good of football recently, and it comes down to that. If Baker Mayfield's going to continue distributing the football at a high level like we saw earlier in the season, great, we're in business. If Baker Mayfield's going to continue in this tailspin himself, it's going to come at the cost of Emeka Egbuka in the process as well. So, anyways, I digress. You're more optimistic. I'm like, this is where Emeka Egbuka belongs, in my opinion. I don't think I can get him any higher than like the wide receiver 20 in my weekly rankings moving forward here. And here you are now. You're like, Lucas, you dummy. He's going to be top 15 in my rankings next week.
Well, every single guy I've been optimistic on, I'm just not there. I'm just
not there. I'm not there. Hey, and you're optimistic rest of season. You're willing to look at this and say, hey, I'll hold on to hope rest of season. And like, this is why it works. This is why we're able to have these conversations, because you hold more of the optimistic side for some of these guys. I'll hold more of the pessimistic side. And there'll be, I guarantee it, if I like had gone through, done my rankings, and like full preparation for this episode instead of coming in, relief last minute, Yeah, we could have had some more back and forth dialogue on some of my guys as well. But
in the comments, just write down Team Tyler, Team Ty, or Team Lucas. Okay.
yeah, it's team. We can make this a Twilight thing. You want to do that?
Yeah, why not? I already know how it'll go, but I would appreciate seeing a team, some Team Ty comments.
You strike me as more of a Team Jacob guy, anyways, and I'm definitely more of a Team Edward guy. So
I'm I'm more Team Lord of the Rings than anything else. So just and like extended version, right? So like, hey, let's
Oh, we've lost this episode. We're an hour in. We're not even.
It's midnight, man. We're on fumes.
We're on fumes, and it's midnight. You're not wrong. Brock Bowers is the other player I want to talk in this tier, because I think he could be higher. I think he should be higher. I look. Hey, look. I'm not. I get it. You and I flushed Brock Bowers out a little bit before we turned on the cameras, right? He's still giving you top 7 performances here. I'm not saying Brock Bowers is like breaking fantasy football. Do I think he should be in the C tier? I do. He's giving you more points per game than Ashton Genty, man.
Which is fair. It's just on like a quarter of the touches. I'm
not trying to sit here and make a case for Brock Bowers being this earth-shattering. He should be in Trey McBride. I'm not nowhere close. Trey McBride is averaging 3.3 more points per game in PPR formats than Brock Bowers this year. I mean, it's not a question, right? I'm just saying, hey, when they get in the red area, at least it's getting to Brock Bowers. I'm not saying the red area trips are that frequent, but when they are infrequent and it's Brock Bowers scoring the touchdowns, that's got to be worth something. But I get it. The volume isn't there either. Not at the level that we would want out of Brock Bowers.
Oh, and you got Philly and then Houston in back-to-back weeks.
I mean, it's not pretty. It's not pretty for Brock Bowers. Come on,
brother. That is.
Someone
Yikes.
Say Fernando Mendoza. You are a Las Vegas Raider.
Let's just get the coach right first, man. Let's get the coach and the scheme and the system right first.
You don't want me recklessly speculating the Raiders getting the first. I mean, it's not even reckless speculation. They have the number 2 pick right now, and they could easily lose out rest of season. And they get the Giants this week, next week. They get them in one of the next 2 weeks.
Week 17.
17. Thank you. I'm like, they get them down the stretch here. It is 17. My best ball brain needs to turn back on. Yeah, they get the Giants down the stretch. Team that could easily be looking at Fernando Mendoza, number 1 overall.
They're gonna zig when everyone else, or they're gonna zag when everyone else is zigging, and they're gonna take like Dante Moore or somebody like that, or just wait for like Garrett Nussmeier in the 3rd round.
Not even Arvell Reese.
Yeah, they're banking on Arvell Reese to play opposite Max Crosby because that makes complete sense, because Geno Smith is definitely the answer here. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I love Arvell Reese. Don't get me wrong, but I digress. Brock Bowers is a guy where, you would like to see. I get anybody who's going to want to say put him in C. I get it. I do. I hear you out there. But I'm not gonna. I don't necessarily outright disagree that he's here in D tier based on
finally a guy I'm more pessimistic on your optimism.
Yeah, sure. We can look at it like that. That's fine. I was good. My level of optimism is probably equal to your level of pessimism, though. Where like I'm not passionate one way or the other, but we complement each other nicely. PB&J, cookies and milk, whatever. Legendary coffee.
Move on. It's late. We need to go.
E tier. Aaron Jones. Gosh, this is getting off the rails. I hope this is entertaining content. Nobody's watching on. I bet there's people watching. If you're watching on YouTube, let us know down below. If you've somehow made it an hour into this show, make sure you hit that subscribe button too, because there's more where this came from. So again, one of the easiest ways to support us. You'll get notified when our newest videos go up. We go live every Sunday as well before kickoff. Answer all of your last minute start sit questions. Aaron Jones, Jalen Warren, Deebo Samuel, Zay Flowers, Jaquavius Marks, Kenneth Walker, DK Metcalf, Jacoby Myers, Michael Pittman, Jawan Jennings, Michael Wilson. 2 guys I have headaches over every single week when I look at them as my running back 3. Woody Marks, Jaquavius Marks, if you want to use the full government name. Woody Marks and Kenneth Walker. Which one do you prefer rest of the season? We'll keep it short.
No, Woody Marks. It's pretty easy for me.
I think I need. I'm done with Kenneth Walker. I told you when we came on the show when you highlighted those two as guys to mention, and I just like I literally told you I'm like I'm just done with Kenneth Walker, man. Like the 1 week he gives me hope, he literally just like goes ahead and instead of stabbing me in the back, he just stabs me straight through the heart, and it's like,
well, he did
what?
both.
Well, yeah, but
he stabbed you in the front, and as you're falling,
he snuck up on me in my
then...
sleep and just sandwiched 2 knives, one into my back and one through my heart.
If you've watched Deadpool, you know what the baby knife joke is,
Yeah,
right?
yes.
So you got hit with the baby knife in the back as you're falling down.
That's exactly it. That's exactly it. No, I'm with you. You at least you can't even say you get the receiving work with Woody Marks, but 26 touches, despite only getting 2.8 yards per carry against the Chiefs. It's better than what Ken Walker is getting you, despite him just absolutely smashing outside zone runs this year. That's not turning into fantasy points. That's the problem.
You know what's wild? I'm just kind of noticing this. He has like 3 games where his longest rush is the same amount of carries he's had in a game. And that's 10. That's wild. That's wild. That. Okay, we can praise Clint Kubiak all we want for, the JSN emergence. Dog, get your run game straightened out, man. It's one of the biggest disappointments for all of us fantasy people that, man, Ken Walker, what a talent. You can really utilize him in this offense.
I also don't want to act.
You think?
I also don't want to act like this offensive line has been perfect either. I mean, could he be? I feel like we can always say that about the running back position, right? Like, well, if the offensive line play was better, obviously we're seeing that come into effect with Saquon Barkley this year. But I do believe that if the Seattle Seahawks offensive line was playing even just a slight level higher than they are, maybe we get more out of Ken Walker. But it's not worth even figuring out right now because the Seattle Seahawks play action pass attack is just otherworldly right now. Clint Kubiak is just feasting on that. So why would you maybe figure out the run game when they're absolutely crucifying people through the air right now? So that's the counterpoint there. But I don't disagree with you in any capacity. I'm just done with Ken Walker, and it's Woody Marks for us this season for me. I agree. Last guy I want to talk about because he's the talk of the town. Somehow we saved this until an hour and 6 minutes into the show. And this could still be like a 20-minute conversation we have. It's not going to be. Michael Wilson. Look, the dude is a fiend. I don't like. Oh no! Stop! I know.
Play the song.
Scott,
play the song.
do do do. I won't sing it. Michael Wilson. He is the absolute freaking man without Marvin Harrison Jr. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Fool me 3 times. Look, to me, it's like you have to get him more involved, even if Marv comes back. There's no question. To me, I rank him ahead of Jawan for sure, ahead of Pittman, ahead of DK Metcalf, ahead of Zafa, ahead of Debo. I'm just naming wide receivers here, not necessarily. You get to Wandale, Terry, and Igbuka with Marv, is what I'm saying. Without Marv, this is a A-tier player right now, which is crazy. Michael Wilson is playing he's so smooth right now. The back shoulder touchdown on Sunday. Did you watch that? Oh, it was a thing of beauty. I watched that of the body control in the air to block out the defender, still haul it. Oh, it was a thing of beauty. It's a thing of beauty. So I don't want to say I take offense to Michael Wilson being this low. If you assume Marv comes back, I get it. They might force feed him more. That's what it was in his first game back. With 3 games now, we have the sample size there that says, hey, Michael Wilson is good at the football. Give him the ball more, even with Marv back. That's what logic should tell you.
Drew Petzing, are you listening? Drew Petzing.
He's not a listener of this show. You know that.
Of course not.
He's got better ways to use his time than talk about 2 dorks make Deadpool jokes and
Hey man,
riff
the
off
baby
Travis
knife
Scott.
joke. The baby knife joke it fits so many different scenarios, so many different conversations. That's why I'm the one that's the lowest on Michael Wilson. Definitely of the three,
Yeah.
because I'm like,
Yeah,
Marv is
you
coming
are.
back. Marv is coming back. I want to say this, okay? Michael Wilson, when he was coming out of the draft, right? When he was coming out of Stanford, he was one of my favorite receivers in that draft class.
Yeah.
Okay. I have
You were a
always
pro
been
Michael Wilson guy.
I was a pro Michael Wilson guy. I've always liked the talent of Michael Wilson. I just know, here's what I do know about this Arizona offense. Jacoby Brissett can sling it around the yard. His preferred target is Trey McBride. If Marvin Harrison Jr. is playing, then it's him, and then it's Michael Wilson. If Marv isn't playing, then it's Michael Wilson. And then you add in the run game. Trey Benson is way too hurt to play right now, so you got to play Bam Knight, and then you try to mix in Michael Carter, but you know the Bam Knight's probably the more efficient back, so that's why you're giving him more receiving work, and then your offensive line can't block for diddly squat, and then you try to add in Greg Dortch, but then he goes to IR. You get the point. It's really predictable. It's really, really predictable. You know everything you need to know about this Arizona offense. You know it looks bad, but you are going to reap the benefits of the fantasy points. So if Marv doesn't play, yes, Michael Wilson is much, 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 much higher in our rankings. But Marv is going to play. That's how I see it. And until I hear otherwise, Michael Wilson will stay this low.
Yeah, it's worth tracking Marv's status throughout the week. Again, I have no clue how long this heel is going to keep him out for sure. All I got is week 14 updates right now. I have nothing on week 15. So keep track on Marv's status throughout the week. It's the only downside of doing these videos so early in the week, because realistically, it'd be better if we could do this on like a Thursday. And then it's like, okay, we have at least Wednesday practice data. We have some vibes around camp of, is Marv going to be active? No, because if not, Michael Wilson is just automatically like either top of the B tier or an A tier wide receiver this week. So keep tabs on Marv. That will greatly impact Michael Wilson's ranking for sure. We'll put a pin in it there. We've been at it for an hour and about 10 minutes already. Again, if you've made it this far, make sure you hit that subscribe button, turn on the notification bell as well. Because at this point, why are you still here? That's not true. You're still here because clearly we provided you enough content for you to be interested in. But you're listening to us record on Fumes. It's 12:16 a.m. Central Time on Tuesday, December 9th. You'll all be getting this episode in 11 hours. Somehow we're going to get it turned around in 11 hours.
Thanks, Cam. Thanks, buddy. Appreciate you.
Yeah, you better get it up at this time if you dipped on us tonight. That's not fair at all. I love you, Cam. That was not fair to you at all. Cam is being a wonderful husband right now. And Ty and I were talking. Being a husband always comes before being a fellow, and we will always stand by that. So Cam is doing the right thing and being a very, very good husband right now. I'm happy to come in and do this show on Fumes if that's what it means to get you all an episode on Tuesday. Freaking A, man. When we say we're going to get you videos Tuesday and Thursday, rest of season, throughout the offseason, we're going to get you videos Tuesday and Thursday. All right, we are committed to that. We want to make sure we stay on schedule and provide you all the content that you all expect on its respective days. If you want even more fantasy football content, you can follow our personal socials as well. I'm at Lucas Wencl on X, Tyler_Plath for Ty. Other fellas socials, more exclusive content over there for you. FF Fellas on Twitter, the FF Fellas on Instagram, Fantasy Football Fellas on Facebook. TikTok. If you're watching on YouTube, we got you covered over there too. Fantasy Football Fellas shorts over there. Just did a first round redraft. Be curious to get y'all's thoughts on how you would redraft the first round over there. So you can go check that out as well. We'll be back on Thursday per usual. Hopefully it'll be Cam and Ty this time around because again, I have conflict this week. So if not, you'll get another show on Thursday with Ty and I running on Fumes. Players you should be starting and sitting going into the first round of the fantasy football playoffs in week 15. Get some sleep, y'all. That's what I'm headed to do right now. Take care of yourselves. Love yourselves well. Stay safe. Stay healthy. We'll see you later this week. Deuces.